Welcome everyone to another amazing Superhuman live cast. This is our newest episode, and today I have my good friend Boris Kerjner with us today. Are you there, Boris?
Hey everyone. Hey David.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing awesome.
All right, so Boris is a holistic practitioner. He's been healing and learning and transforming lives for over 13 years. Is that right?
That's about right. Yeah.
So he's been trained in almost every type of modality you can think of, everything from Reiki to psychotherapy, neural therapy. I don't even know half of the things that you've learned and studied, but he has done all of them. And today he's going to share with us some very exciting and very important things on how to enhance your longevity and how to increase your energy and how to lower your brain age or become healthier and be able to live a lot longer.
That's right. Good topic today.
Yeah. So, and he's also been working with a lot of our technologies, specifically our gem lasers. So he's going to share about how he's been using them and what we can do with them as well. So today is kind of more of an informal discussion. We're going to be talking about longevity and acupressure in general. So I don't just hand it over to you, Boris, and then you can tell us what you would like us to learn.
Awesome. Well, I think, as we're talking about the topic of longevity, one of the things that we should understand is that our core vital organs, they were designed to outlive us. They were designed to go way past the biological age that is kind of the common lifespan today, 100 years or 70 to 100 years. So one of the things that we can begin to understand is that it's, if we look at the leading diseases, the reasons that people die, so we see heart disease, stroke, we see cancer. And what's common between all three of these? The main commonality is stagnation. There's stagnation of energy that happens. Heart attack, stroke, all the cardiovascular disease, that has to do with the millions of miles of capillaries and arteries and veins in our body losing their elasticity, losing the movement, the flow, and basically finding various obstacles, various stagnations where plaque begins to build up, and then the necessary nutrients, the necessary oxygen no longer gets to the brain. We call that stroke. No longer gets to the heart. We call that heart attack. Or it gets stuck in other areas of the body, and we have various forms of disease and incapacity that begin to happen. So when we can understand that the main, rule of life is movement, is change, then we can begin to use this understanding, use this insight to facilitate health, facilitate well-being in our own lives. Would you agree with that, David, based on the principles of Qi?
Absolutely, yeah. It's completely in alignment with what we're doing.
Right. So the idea, the really core idea behind longevity is movement, but not just any kind of movement, harmonious movement that flows in harmony with our environment, that flows in harmony with our body, our mind. So one of the core ways that we can begin to apply this principle of movement is by facilitating harmonious flow of energy through our body. Our body is equipped with energy meridians and energy points that are called acupressure or acupuncture points. By having this understanding how the energy moves, we can begin to facilitate that movement. We can begin to bring intention to the way that movement unfolds in our body. Typically, as we operate by default, let's say we don't know anything about energy, we don't know anything about movement, we're just kind of going through our life, mainly reacting and being imprinted by various ideas and people and environments. What begins to happen is that we encounter certain patterns in our environment. We maybe observe somebody, or we maybe are exposed to something. And that pattern, especially during our childhood, begins to lodge itself energetically into our being. So this is where we can come to also talk about the brain, which we're going to get into later on today. These patterns, these ways of thinking, this form of consciousness, this way that we are essentially, the way that we begin to think that we are and feel that we are, begins to condition the way that energy moves in our body. And as that energy becomes conditioned, we, by default, we're either okay and we're doing pretty good, we live a reasonably healthy life, although we don't know why. We don't know why that happened. We don't know how to rebuild that if that is somehow taken away from us. Or we end up with, by default, an experience where we suffer a lot because we have a lot of different problems in our health, in our life. The movement of energy is not just to do with physical health. It is something that impacts our entire experience of life. Relationships is another example. Relationship is an exchange of energy, a flow of energy. When there is stagnation, when we consciously or unconsciously create stagnation, typically unconsciously, we create problems in that relationship, friction, conflict, resistance. So beginning to understand energy in terms of movement and beginning to really think about different areas of our life in this context allows us to pick up on insights and clues, and gives us a sense of direction of what can we do. So if you're ever feeling stuck, right, it's even in our vocabulary, it's the way we speak, so we have this term like, oh, you get stuck, I got stuck, and we don't like getting stuck. Well, stuck is a stagnation, right? So whenever you notice that there's any stagnation in any area of your life, we can begin to ask ourselves this question. It's like, how do we create flow? What's not flowing? Where is the block or the stuckness?
Yeah, blockages can be more than just one kind of blockage. So when we think of blockages, we probably think of just a physical block, but there are also energetic blocks. It's also emotional blocks or spiritual blocks. But what happens as you remove one kind of block, the other blocks also get removed. So for example, if you remove a physical block in your body that's causing pain, you may also be removing a spiritual block, or you may be also removing an abundance block. So they're all connected.
Today, we're talking about longevity and brain health. In the context of longevity, so we begin to apply this principle of flow of energy. We essentially can begin to look at our body, our life, our thoughts, our mind, and understand that if we want longevity, we, in essence, have to surrender to this experience of life called flow. Life is always changing. Every moment is always dissolving and becoming completely unlike itself, the previous moment. Although it may look exactly like it, it's not. It's completely different. And so surrendering to this flow, the flow of life, the flow of energy, the flow of how the moment wants to unfold, is in essence, if we look at it from the other point of view, is the releasing of resistance. The releasing of resistance is akin to also the release of tension, the release of, in our mind, we can experience resistance too. I'm sure many of you know what we're talking about when we speak about mental resistance. It's the kind of thing that something has happened, and yet you don't want to accept it in your mind, and your mind keeps on pushing against it, trying to find explanations, trying to somehow undo the past, although you know you can't. So not only is there an energy expenditure that exhausts us, wearies us, but also we create mental stagnation. There's a beautiful story I read not too long ago. I made a little post about this. It's that, acceptance sometimes seems like kind of a weak position. Because many of us, we're taught, we're like, okay, yes, so what we're here to do is we're here to break through, we're here to persevere. Oh, how could there be a no? How could there be something that is not the way that I want it? I won't accept it. I'm going to keep fighting. And that method works only up to a certain point. Beyond that point, what we begin to notice is that when we encounter a certain situation in our life, if we don't come to a place of acceptance, so this is also including conditions in the body, illnesses, disease. When we are missing this ingredient of acceptance, we're basically denying our starting point. It's as if you have no starting point. So let's say that I developed a certain condition in my hand, and now I'm not as good at my dexterity, for example. But I'm shy about this, and I feel embarrassed that this is happening. I feel disadvantaged. I feel something wrong is going on, and not only do I not face this scenario and look at what can happen next, I kind of deny it, which is another form of stagnation, another form of a blockage. So now I have no starting point. I can't begin my healing process if I say that I am not even, I don't even have a problem to begin with. But you see, every problem that we have is not actually a problem. It's an opportunity. It's an emblem for something greater wanting to emerge in our life, something greater, a greater level of consciousness, a greater possibility, opportunity. If we continue with the same example, when we bring acceptance into the picture, when I really say, you know what, actually, yes, I do notice, several months ago or even years ago, I noticed that I began to lose my dexterity. That gives me the first point of starting. Now I can ask, okay, well, what's next? Now I can surf the moment and I can say, okay, well, what's the best way that this can unfold? And I begin researching. I begin listening to, lectures such as this one, coming to webinars and researching on YouTube. And suddenly I find out, let's say, about gem lasers. And now I say, oh, wow, okay, so it sounds like there's something that can help me. I'm painting this picture. At the end, I'll kind of summarize this. But so we find this opportunity. We find the gem lasers. We say, oh, I'm not sure if I want it. But we realize, oh, there's a trial period. So I'm going to try it. And so we say, okay, so you start trying it. And suddenly, not only do you regain the dexterity in your hand, because you now started to really address the problem, but you begin to notice that there are other things that you can do with it. And you suddenly, your world begins to open up. What started as a problem turns into a new way of being, a new way of expressing yourself in life. So now perhaps maybe you learned how to master the gem lasers. Now perhaps you're using them in other ways for your own health. Maybe you're now able to help your family, or perhaps now this turns into an obsession, a profession, and maybe you build a business around it. So this is the way that we can begin to think about both longevity and these opportunities for us to release stagnation, release resistance, release these obstacles, and really open ourselves up, open up the space to encounter the opportunity.
A lot of times we encounter stress or obstacles in life, and we rely on our willpower to kind of bulldoze through the problem and blast through it, which is one way of solving problems. But as you get older, you don't have as much fervor and focus, or you may not, have enough concentration as when you were, in your teens to blast through problems the same way, right? So sometimes a easier way is just to go with the flow. It's just in the same way how we practice martial arts is there's different ways of, dealing with incoming force. Right? You can block it with another force, or you can blend with the force and guide it to another direction, which is actually a higher level of skill, right? And when you do that, you're using force, using somebody's force to do what you want instead of fighting it head on. And what happens is you start to blend and you start to work with the things that come your way, so to speak, and you're able to use less energy and be more in harmony with the forces that are coming your way.
Exactly. So this is exactly the principle that we are going to harness today and in our upcoming workshop. we're going to be harnessing the principle of using what is, whatever is in our environment, to catapult us to the next level, to use it for our purposes, to take the energy coming at us, whether it's in the form of a problem in our life, problems in our relationship, something happening in our body. We're going to take this as an opportunity, and we're going to begin to, first of all, create flow, and then also surrender to the flow, knowing, and this is the thing too, is that what allows us to surrender is the knowing and the trust that life is actually friendly, that it's actually good, that these things that are happening that seemingly are obstacles, they are really, you know, the way I might think about it is, again, in the context of martial arts, you will have your instructor, and your instructor is there, and he's kind of teaching you, and then he suddenly sneaks in a move that you've never expected and he's never shown you before, and he gets you. But he's not getting you to hurt you. He's not getting you to break you. He's getting you to open up your perception, to open up your world, to understand that there are moves that you haven't learned yet, that there is ways for you to move that you haven't yet embraced. And him giving you this push opens up your perception. Suddenly you understand, oh yes, if something like that comes at me, I have to move in a different way. So looking at life in this way, looking at life as, you know, in martial arts, we may call you a teacher and master, or your guru, or your sensei. And all of these terms, they convey the same thing. They convey a sense of honor, respect, and sense of listening, and some sense of surrender, some sense of trust. So as we open up to life like this, we can begin to harness its opportunities. Now, let's circle into the topic of today, which is longevity. Longevity and aging, okay? So the classical understanding about aging, why do we age after all? It has to do with the laws of thermodynamics, the laws of physics. So the second law of thermodynamics talks about the fact that if I have a glass of water and it's at a particular temperature, let's say this glass of water is cold, and I leave it in this room, the water will eventually turn the same temperature as the room. This is all obvious, right? Everybody knows this. But the law of thermodynamics, in the same way, also dictates that systems that are orderly, systems such as our body, systems, so closed systems that are orderly, are bound towards entropy, bound towards dissonance, bound to dissolve, bound to break, bound to fall apart, okay? So this was the classical understanding, and it was talked about aging in this way. It's just part of life. It's the laws of physics. But actually, this is not very accurate. In fact, it's wrong in one big sense, that the body, our body, your body, is not a closed system. And this is, again, where we come to this understanding of flow. Of course, it's not a closed system. It is constantly exchanging everything, you know, even air coming in and out, energy radiating from our bodies, energy being absorbed into our bodies. We're eating, we're excreting. So we are in constant flow. And that's not even to mention the information flow that's happening through our mind, through our words. So because your body, because our biology is not a closed system, even if we look at the most foundational building block of biology, which is the cell, oh yes, it seems to have a cell wall, but the entire health of that cell is really dependent on the fact that that cell wall should be flexible. It should be something that allows the things that need to come in, and keeps the things that need to stay out, to stay out. So again, we come to this inescapable principle of flow, exchange, dynamism. So in essence, because nothing operates in a vacuum, we the key to health really becomes movement. The key to health really becomes flow and exchange of energy. I want to bring an illustration to us. The illustration is this. I bet many of us have already heard about what's called the blue zones in the world. David, have you heard about blue zones? No? Okay. So like blue zones is, there have been many books written about this. There are 5 identified blue zones, and blue zones are essentially those areas in the world where people live the longest, where people are the healthiest. Okay. And what I did is I looked it up and I wanted to see what are those characteristics, what are those core characteristics of these people, of these areas. What's the culture like? What are they doing? What are they, you know? So I got this list. So the list is this. There's 9 main aspects. Number 1, no surprise, it's that they have regular, moderate physical activity. This is not them going to the gym. This is the way of life. You know, so many of our lives, most likely, I know for sure myself, even though I try to, you know, again, counter this, but the way the Western life is kind of like this. You know, you're here on your computer, and then maybe you are out on your balcony, and then maybe you watch something on TV, you know, and then you lay down. And so you're in this little box. Look at this little box, you know, our homes. Does it remind you of stagnation, right? If we look at the cultures here in these blue zones, by the way, the blue zones, the 5 of them are, and these are all regions in these countries. There's a region in Japan, in Italy, in Costa Rica, and in Greece. Yeah, and I think the last one is in the United States, and it's a certain religious group that practices and adheres to certain ways of living. So the life in these areas are such that they're not in little boxes. They're not in a place where there's stagnation, there's very little movement. In fact, most of these cultures spend a lot of time outside. Most of these cultures are farming cultures. They're and not industrialized farming, but it's farming like by getting into the activity yourself, by working with the animals, by being on land, by breathing fresh air, exerting yourself, right? So this ingredient. Then we have the second of the 9 aspects is life purpose. What is this again? Think about life purpose. Purpose is I would say that purpose is a sense of direction. Purpose is that there's something to accomplish, that there's a service to give. Okay, so a strong connection to purpose. Number 3 is they all engage in some form of stress reduction, whether that's meditation or that's prayer or that's mantra chanting or whatever it is that they do. Sometimes it's kind of native to that culture, but in essence, there's always some kind of regular practice of stress reduction. Number 4 is that there isn't a big caloric intake. The caloric intake daily, which is how many calories we eat, how much we eat, is quite low as well. Then there's moderate alcohol intake. There's plant-based diet. There's engagement in spirituality or religion. There's engagement in family life, engagement in social life. So the main thing that I want you to get from this list is not the specifics, but see what that life is like. It's all about movement. The commonality between all of these is that the flow of life is apparent in these cultures, in these areas. So, as we said in the beginning, it's not just about the movement of the body, not just about the flow of the body, but it's about the harmonious flow of life energy throughout all of the different areas of our life, from our nutrition to our relationship to our spiritual connection, to the way that we move around on a daily basis. It really comes down to the flow of energy as the foundation of holistic health and longevity. I think that this is where we can get into the subtleties now of the brain, because when it comes to the flow of energy in our body, we have 2, perhaps 3 main centers responsible for the flow of energy. Starting with the lowest center, which is our dantian, which is our kind of core, our solar plexus. Our heart is another major, of course, right? Every pump, you can feel it, it's moving, right? And of course, our brain. So energetically, our heart and our brain make up the mass of the energy output of our body. the way to think about our brain is, sometimes I like to think about it as the keyboard. The keyboard, the mouse, the joystick, the control center, through which consciousness, through which our mind interacts and expresses itself in physicality, expresses itself in physicality specifically through our body. So as I decide to move my hand up, right, there's a thought to move my hand, and then the hand moves. Of course, it can go really fast. It could be, you know, just a snap of a finger, because thoughts move really fast. But what is actually happening? Because if we were to really, 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 really slow it down and start to measure energy from, let's say, over here to the tip of my finger, scientists would be able to tell us how long did it take to get to here, then to here, then to here, then to here. So there is a flow, there is an expression, and this expression seems to originate in the brain. So one way that we can think about the brain is that the brain is governing the way that energy flows through our nervous system. And what, you know, if we think to the field of chiropractics, or chiropractors, what do? You know, we think, oh yes, they're just cracking backs, you know, they're adjusting joints, but actually no. Like if you really look at the theory behind chiropractic care, what is really happening is that they are, yes, of course, they're adjusting these joints, but why? They're adjusting them to release energy or release pressure on nerves. It's really all about the nervous system. It's not about bones. It's about nerves. And when they open up these channels through their specific technique of chiropractic, energy begins to flow again. And that is what creates the pain relief. That is what creates health. You know, so it's a very holistic system. If you talk to any chiropractor, they will have, you know, treatments for you for, you know, for colds or for inability to think clearly. You know, obviously it's got nothing to do with bones or you know, I was going to say, or our posture, but of course our posture does have something to do with it, because our posture is the alignment of energy. As we talked about before, we have meridians running throughout our entire body. And so the way that we carry ourselves, even the way that we hold our body, either creates stagnation or it creates flow and harmony. Bringing it back to the brain, when we, I'm going to take one more step back, because I wanted to touch on something that I talked about in the beginning. Let's bring that over here. We talked about us picking up patterns throughout our life, picking up patterns of how to be, how to think, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. The core of these patterns that we picked up, especially from ages 0 to 7, at that point, most of the imprints that shape our life, unfortunately, as you might notice in the world, these imprints are traumatic. It is essentially traumas. As you look at a young child, you will see what's happening there in terms of energy. If you think about this principle of flow, you will see that there is no obstacle for this bundle of energy, this bundle of joy, right? We call the baby, oh, a bundle of joy, right? But it's curious. It has no, you know, so everything is allowed. It has no obstacle, no stagnation, because it doesn't know of that kind of principle. Just like energy itself, consciousness itself, doesn't know of any limitation. There is no limitation to consciousness. There's no limitation in mind. So as this baby is interacting with the world, this baby is, of course, you and me. So as we interact with the world in our infancy, we begin to encounter various stops. And these stops come from who? Of course, they come from our parents, who inherited it from their parents and their parents and their parents and their parents. So we have this legacy that we pass on generation to generation. And in essence, this legacy is, for the most part, for many of us, it's stagnation. It's no. It's ways that we should limit ourselves. The child starts to sing. It starts to make noises. It's not trying to, of course, offend anybody. It's just expressing and experimenting with the flow of energy. And then suddenly somebody who's had a long, hard day of disappointments and hardship hears this and it doesn't sound good. And he says, stop it, stop making that noise. And there we have an imprint. And that imprint then dictates much of the way that our brain works. We begin to form beliefs even at a very young age, even pre-verbal. So this is the thing in psychology, is like, how do we get to those pre-verbal beliefs? Because you can't even form them. But let's say in that kind of situation, let's say the child was really, really young, pre-verbal, experiences that, it can feel energy, it will experience fear, but it doesn't have any words for it. And so it gets lodged as a blueprint in our mind, a blueprint that says, it's not okay to speak up. It's not okay to follow my impulse. It's not okay to follow my inspiration. And of course, there's also, common sense explanations for this, in the sense like, yeah, of course, we can't have the baby yelling and screaming all the time. And I get all of that, but we're talking about you and me, and we're talking about these imprints that we inherit. What are we going to do with them? So, so we go through life, especially early life, we collect this pattern of ways that we then decide is appropriate to limit ourselves. And this becomes our map of the brain. Back in 2015, I used to have a neurofeedback clinic in Vancouver. And what we used to do is we essentially used to help people's brains repattern themselves. So the brain learns a certain way of firing. And you must have heard this in neuroscience, Dr. Dispenza or Dr. Amen. Neurons that fire together, wire together, right? Fire together, wire together. So it means that the more we encounter some form of stagnation that we have been imprinted with, the more that we encounter this and we say to ourselves, oh, no, yeah, I shouldn't speak up. I shouldn't speak up. The more we ingrain that pattern, the more we crystallize it, the more we solidify it. And the beautiful thing about the brain is that it works on the principle of least resistance. It will take you down the path of least resistance. So for a person who has been conditioned his whole life in a particular way of thinking, a particular way of energy expression, this person, the easiest way for the brain to work is the same exact way, is to always hold back, is to always honor the obstacle, the stagnation, the no. So as we talk about brain health in this way, as we're talking about it in the context of longevity, the real core to our freedom, not only from these mental blueprints, but so that energy can move harmoniously through the body, is of course to begin to create flow and energy, a flow of harmonious energy in the brain. Okay, so this is going to be the core of our upcoming workshop. But what I want to do today, and what I want to do here, is just to get us a little bit started and a little bit accustomed to sensing the flow of energy. And in a minute here, I'm going to ask you to follow along with me, and I'm going to take you through a very simple but also very, very powerful routine. We're just going to be using our hands. The sneak peek that we touch in here in terms of acupuncture and the way that our body is designed or set up, or the way that the energy flows, is that we've heard this before, I'm sure, in other contexts, but there is a microcosm and a macrocosm. And it is said in many wisdom teachings, as above, so below, as in the macrocosm, as in the universe, so in the microcosm, so in the atom. And this pattern is repeated all over our body. So if we wanted to work with our body and our brain, certainly we can use points on our head that are related to the brain. But if we look at, for example, our ear also contains the entire body. From head to tailbone, the entire body is displayed in the ear. So, and this is called ear reflexology. Then we have the same thing happening on our foot. And we call that reflexology, the foot reflexology, which the whole body is displayed in the foot. And so likewise with the hand. When we're talking about the hand, and we want to work with the brain and the head part of our body is displayed by the tips of our fingers. So each tip of the finger is related to a certain aspect of the brain, a certain aspect of our head, of our neurology. So what we're going to do in this practice, I call this activating the hands of light, or Buddha palm. But the first step is I would like you to take your thumb and index finger, and we're going to start whichever hand, and we're going to simply start by pinching the tips of our fingers, just like this. And just go around as we're hanging out here, and just give each one a good solid pinch, and just go one more round on each side. Do it with the kind of pressure that if you were to look at your fingernail, when you first release it, it's going to be white, and then the color will flood back to it. This is a good way to gauge the pressure that we're doing. Okay, and then switch hands, and we'll do the same 2 rounds on the other hand. And this is a way of creating flow, creating and stimulating the flow of energy in our brain. We can do it right here with our fingertips. And when we get to the workshop next week, we are going to go even deeper into this, and we're going to bring in the use of the gem lasers and Tachyon Energy, and we're going to see how that affects the brain and our experience. So we've just done that. Now what I'd like you to do is give your hands a little shake, just like this. So shaking your hands like this, moving the wrist, we're also creating movement. The wrist is representing our connection to spirit. The wrist is representing our soul connection. And then also like this towards each other. Okay, and now I would like you to perhaps even close your eyes, but begin to, actually don't close your eyes just a second, take a look at the screen. So hold your hands across from each other and begin to just move them a little closer together and a little further apart. And see if you can begin to sense that magnetic energy, that magnetic flow. And you can begin to even play with it a little bit, because it doesn't go just back and forth. You will see that it's got a dynamism to it. It is kind of a spiral dynamic, but you can begin to sense it. You can begin to kind of pull it and feel it. So this, in Qigong, we call this Buddha palm, this hands of light, hands of healing. So right now, your hands are fully energized, and this is a beautiful state to begin a practice of acupressure or acupuncture, or simply the laying on of hands with the intention to just like we would do with Reiki, the intention of healing, the intention of creating flow and harmony. So the thing that I want to highlight here is that it is intention that drives the movement of energy. So when we can begin to not only press points just because we think, oh, okay, let's see, I'm going to just try. But when we can begin to intentionally understanding, oh, yes, I'm connecting to my brain. I'm creating flow in my brain. I'm creating flow of energy in my body, and begin to sense that and begin to intend that, then we have a completely different experience when we understand and we begin to feel, because the feeling really is the secret. When we can feel the flow of energy, that's when it becomes more and more real, and it will come to a certain point where perhaps we don't even need to stimulate the energy so much with our physically. We can begin to more and more direct it with our mind. So yeah, I'd love to hear in the comments if anybody, what your experience was. Did you get to sense energy? Did you get to feel that magnetism? So that's the thing that we really want to connect with, is that energy is real, it's happening, it's moving. And this is the energy that we're going to be harnessing and directing for the creation of, you know, longevity, optimal brain function, peak mental performance. It all really comes down to energy.
Well, whenever I'm holding my hands together, I can feel some sort of heat, but the heat is kind of like, it feels like a ball, and it feels like it's moving. Feels like there's some kind of current.
Mm. Yes.
And whenever I pinch my fingers, I can feel a little bit tingly on my body, and I feel I'm more awake, more alert.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. So this is a sneak preview of what we're going to get into in the workshop. David, were there any questions through the chat or on Facebook or anywhere?
Well, there's some comments. They say they can feel it, and you can feel the pulse in your hands in the form of a ball. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful.
Can you show us how you've been using the gem lasers in that fashion? All that you're going to learn from Boris on the workshop can be done without any kinds of equipment. You can simply just use your fingers and use your hands and use your intention in order to do all the things that you're going to learn. So you're going to learn about acupressure, specifically for longevity and for activating your brain and for brain health. So, but also as part of the course, you will learn how to use the gem lasers, because the gem lasers can be used in 5 different ways. So in the same way that you're stimulating your pressure points with your fingers, now you can use a laser to stimulate it with photon and tachyon energy, which we're going to explain. And you're also stimulating it with physically with the ball of the laser, because the laser is kind of like a massage wand. So you're combining 5 different kinds of therapies into one. You have light, you have color, because the lasers come in different color. You have gem therapy, because the lasers come with 9 different kinds of gems that you can get them in. You also have the massage therapy aspect, and you also have the tachyon energy aspect of it. So Boris has one she can show you right now.
That's right. So in the workshop, we'll really get into the different types of light, right? Because each of the different types of light. So here we have a red laser. So, but each different type of light is a different wavelength. And it is in essence a different type of energy, a different frequency. Not only that, so this is the really cool thing about the gem laser practitioner package, where you have 3 different lasers and you have the 9 different gems. Think about these combinations. So not only do we have the choice of, for example, which acupressure point we're stimulating, or acupuncture point, okay? We have also the choice now of which frequency of light we're going to be using, whether it's, you know, again, this red light, so red, blue, or green. And then we have the combination of the gems, whether it's the amethyst or ruby or quartz. Each one of these has its own, we're going to call this medicine, gem medicine, frequency medicine. So the combinations are really vast. And what we can begin to do is, as we begin to understand what red light is for, what blue light is for, green light is for, and what specific properties each of the different gems has, we can begin to understand that we actually have like a library, like an apothecary of treatment, of medicine, of therapy that we can begin to apply to any condition. So whatever you're working with, not only will you kind of tune into, okay, so what is the specific kind of acupressure or acupuncture protocol, but then also we get to really dive into what kind of medicine we want to apply to it, what kind of frequency. Okay. So David has got it there on the screen, beautiful expression. And I want to talk to you about this. I want to talk to you about this in just a second, about just shining the light, in your space, because I've had some really amazing experiences just experimenting with that. But applying this in the form of acupressure or laser acupuncture. And by the way, laser acupuncture is a very up and coming field. And all of the studies so far are pointing to that it's just as effective as needle acupuncture, except you don't need the needles. So how do you apply that? So the way that you do it is, let's say that we're going to be working with this popular acupuncture point here. So you can, of course, shine it on there, just like this. But just like with acupuncture, there is a theory, perhaps we can call it, to how deep do you stimulate the energy point, okay? And the way that we, with the lasers, control the depth is also by not just shining it, but also by applying some of that pressure as it turns into kind of acupressure. And this pressure doesn't have to be intense, but the more intense, the more the depth of penetration is. Okay, so that's the way to think about it.
Yeah, I think people would like to see a close-up of it, because there's actually a lot of detail that is on the cap itself. So let me see if I can show it on my screen here.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Is it okay to shine it into the camera?
I think so.
It is, right? Because it looks, I mean, like, I don't know if you're getting to see this, but it's the pattern that it forms is incredibly harmonic and coherent and beautiful.
It doesn't do justice looking at it in video. When you see it in real life, it's just completely different from what you see on video, because the way the cameras work, they don't really capture all the geometries that are actually showing up on the lights. But let me see if I can show you the website. I got some photos that okay, here we go. Can you guys see this?
Yeah, it's visible on the screen.
Right, so you see this is a 5 therapies in one. It's a needle-free acupuncture. It's acupressure massage therapy. There's gem light therapy. It's also a cold laser therapy. And you can use it to activate meridians, activate energy centers, or even like your chakras, like your third eye. So you can see here, it has a pattern to it. And right now you can get a few different versions. So we have the red light, we have the blue light, we have the green light, and they have different gems. So it has ruby, sapphire, or peridot. So those are 3 different colors. And they start about $199. And we also have the practitioner system, which includes all 9 different gems. And all the gems are in there in the package. If you look at this, it comes in a box like this. And you get all these different gems. You get ruby, topaz, sapphire, rainbow topaz, amethyst, aquamarine, citrine, and peridot. And you also get the 3 gem lasers. So they come in this set. And if you take a look at here, here's what the actual pattern shows when the gem laser is shined onto a surface. So that is going to be what pattern is going to show on your skin. And as you move closer to your skin, it gets smaller. And as you move away from it, it gets bigger, as Boris showed you there. So this is a better picture than what you can see in the video. But still, in real life, it looks a lot more amazing and just almost mystical what this light pattern actually looks like in real life. So if you look up closely, you can see that the head of the gem laser is like a round massage wand. So it's actually quite convenient and comfortable for doing massage on a specific point. I think so basically what we're offering is, for a limited time, you can get any one of these gem lasers systems, so even the single ones or the practitioner ones, and you're going to get 2 bonuses. So we're doing that workshop next week. It's going to be talking about how to use the gem lasers, or even if you don't have gem lasers, you can join this workshop and learn how to do acupressure by itself without any equipment. And so they offered this week is you can get any gem laser system and you get the workshop for free. So either you join the workshop, it's only $47, and then it's a limited time sale. And usually we're gonna be selling this workshop for $97, but you get this for free with any purchase of any gem laser system. And you also get the safety glasses, which you may or may not need to use because it's actually quite fine using it without it, but some people prefer to wear glasses, these safety glasses, but that's included. It's free with any gem laser systems. So you can choose between the single ruby, the single sapphire, single peridot, or you can get the nine different gems with 3 colors, all the 3 colors. And we have the laser 2 system with the 9 gems on sale. There's only 2 left. This is our older version. So if you want to grab that quickly, we have only 2 in stock. And the only difference between this one and the new one is that the new one, the Gem Laser 3, has a round head, like a round tip, whereas the Gem Laser 2 version has a slightly flatter tip, as you can see. So both can actually be used for acupressure, but it's just that the round tip tends to work a little bit better for acupressure. So if you can see here, the tips are flatter. And then on the Gem Laser 3 version, they're rounder and shaped more like a massage wand.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so if you want to get these, you can go to gemlasers.com. All right, so either you can just go to gemlasers.com, you can sign up for a workshop. It's next Wednesday, same time, 6 p.m. with Boris, and you're gonna get to learn all that and more of what he talked about today. Acupressure and gem laser workshop for longevity, anti-aging, and brain health. And in that workshop, he's gonna cover how to apply unique power of gem lasers and tachyon energy to create holistic health and well-being, and the foundations of how to positively influence your body's energy system through acupressure and gem laser acupuncture. A fast-acting, powerful technique to awaken and energize the brain for peak performance, memory, and learning retention, and a complete guided radiant mind activation sequence to support holistic healing, brain longevity, and peak mental performance. So you can just sign up for the workshop, it's only $47, or you can buy any gem laser system and the workshop is free. So you're gonna get that $97 workshop included in the purchase of any gem laser system. So it's a really good opportunity if you've been interested in acupressure or you want to learn how to enhance your longevity and anti-aging and your brain health. It'll be a good opportunity for you to learn and also learn how to apply the technology.
Yeah, while those questions are coming in, I also just wanted to, I turned down lights here for a second. I wanted to share one last bit about the lasers, which is a discovery that I kind of stumbled upon. And I think that this really has to do with the Tachyon Energy, because what I got to experiment with is one night I put on some beautiful music and I turned down all the lights and I just wanted to see the patterns of the gem lasers. And so I was just kind of playing with the gem lasers, not like this even on myself, but just shining it into the dark space and just watching how the patterns come together. But I got to tell you that within about 5 minutes of that experience, I felt so refreshed. I felt so, you know, and literally I was just kind of like dancing to, you know, the music and just shining the lights. And it was really something very unique. It was a felt sense of a different, and I imagine that what has also happened is that it conditioned the space to some degree, because it was just feeling light, airy, and very, very comfortable and relaxed. So even my partner noticed that when she stepped into the room. So just wanted to share that. That was, you know, something also maybe for you to discover as well.
Right. You can use them as glow sticks in a concert.
Yeah.
Right. So we have a question from Christopher. He says he's using a electric acupuncture device, and how does this compare for it, and would it work for pain relief?
Mhm. Well, this certainly will work for pain relief. Even acupressure works for pain relief, but just like David was showing, this is kind of 5 therapies in one. How is it comparable? With the electroacupuncture, it's sending a little spark of electricity into that acupressure point, and that has been around also for a very long time, and it has a lot of its merits. So it's using electrical energy to stimulate your energy meridians and the flow of energy in your body. When we're using the gem lasers, we're stacking different therapies together. Not only are we stimulating the energy point, which has its own effects, but just like we said before, we're using light therapy, we're using gem therapy, and we're also using tachyon energy. And tachyon energy is essentially the energy of light being accelerated past the speed of light as it passes through the gem. So that's how I would say it compares. I would say that this is a much more robust tool with a far wider application, and also a greater depth of potential. Because again, we're talking about natural frequencies and not just a spark of electricity.
Right. So tell us more about tachyon energy. We actually didn't cover that, but that was a really interesting topic. So as I understand, tachyons are are particles that travel faster than light, right?
That's right. So, I mean, this is quite a rabbit hole. I just kind of started diving down this rabbit hole, but in essence, it has been thought that light is the fastest thing in the universe, the speed of light. But tachyon energy is apparently faster. But as you approach faster and faster and faster and faster, right? What happens is that you get to zero, right? You get to zero again. You get to 0 point. And so tachyon energy is also associated with 0 point energy. Um, and 0 point energy has been used in many different healing tools. Basically, it is a form of, I would say, it's kind of like this form of clearing. Just like we talked about all throughout this webinar, we've been talking about flow, dynamism, movement, right? Now, 0 is not dynamism and movement, it is stillness. But stillness and harmonious movement and the fastest possible degree of movement are really like just a split hair away from each other. So that's kind of like opening that, and we will dive a little bit more into tachyon energy and its effects when we get into the workshop.
Right. Yeah. So tachyons are, just to clarify, because I think many people want to know. So tachyons are particles that travel faster than light. And before about a few decades ago, all scientists thought that the light particle, a photon, cannot travel faster than light. Light is the fastest you can go. Like the speed of light is the fastest speed. But then recently, there have been scientists that have been shining light beams through crystals in order to make them travel faster than light. How much faster? They were actually able to make them go 50 times faster than the speed of light, which was thought to be impossible, but they proved that it worked. And they did it through shining lasers through crystals or through gems, just like what we are doing. So with all these, so when we are shining the lasers through the gems, we are actually causing those light particles to go faster than light. That's the theory, okay? And then when that happens, now you have very powerful tachyon energy. You can experience powerful tachyon energy. It's not just light energy anymore. It's basically light energy on steroids. It's like light energy at a much higher dimension. It goes beyond the speed of light. It goes beyond the speed of what we thought was the fastest thing. And now we're going about 5 to 50 times faster than light. And then scientists who have discovered this, for some reason, a lot of their research have been suppressed, and we don't know why. And probably because the people who are in power don't want people to know that there's a way to travel faster than light. But now we have this technology, and we're basing it off that theory that you can use this and harness this tachyon energy and on your body. And when you actually put it on your hand like this, just like when we did the exercise with Boris with the hands, when you shine the laser, I can feel the heat on my hands. It's not actually, there's no heat from the light. It's actually the photons. You can feel the photons on your hands. You can feel it tickle your fingers. So you're actually activating all those meridians and all those energy centers directly without using any needles. You don't even have to apply pressure if you don't want to. So the thing with needles is that people have to put it in their body, and a lot of people don't like needles, and you have to keep buying more and more needles, and it gets expensive if you do acupressure or acupuncture on a regular basis, because every time you buy a set of needles, it's like $10 or $20, and then after a week or so you got to buy another set of needles. But with this one, you don't need needles, and you can use it as long as you want. The batteries are rechargeable, so you can just recharge the batteries and you can use this unlimited times. There's no limit to it. Yeah, sacred geometry. So there's a comment. These are, you can see the geometry in the light pattern because the gems themselves are cut with a certain geometry. So when you are shining the light through the gem, the light gets refracted into a pattern that is geometrical, as you can see. So there's really nothing out there like this right now that uses this technology.
Yeah.
All right, so looking forward towards the workshop. Is going to be amazing. I've always wanted to learn how to incorporate more kinds of acupressure. The good thing about acupressure is that you can do it anytime, right? You could be waiting for something or waiting for your coffee at the Starbucks or something, or you can be at home, or you can be just waiting at a stoplight, and you can just use your fingers and start doing massage. And you can do it anywhere, and you can do it on other people as well. So it's a very great skill and very useful skill to learn.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be very hands-on. We're going to learn about the different forms of energy that we can implement. And of course, we're going to learn also how to just use our hands to facilitate the experience that we want, which in this workshop, we're really going to be focusing on brain longevity and peak mental performance. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, so that's all for today's live cast, the Superhuman live cast.
Yeah.
So until next time, use the chi and prosper.